whole thing is, Mother Teresa was a woman for probably over 30,000 days, and she never got her face put on a beer can. My mother's been a woman for over 24,000 days, and neither has she. So I think it's a little insulting. And frankly, I think all women should be completely insulted by this at this particular point, that men keep getting these accolades for being the bravest women in the world because they're dudes. The whole thing is so absurd that all you can do is actually laugh at it. And by the way, Nike now, on top of Bud Light being the stupidest fucking piece of shit corporation on earth, Nike said, hold our beer, pun intended, and decided to make Dylan Mulvaney the actual spokesmodel for their new sports bras, when Dylan, who never even changed his name from his real name, he's still using his dude name, Dylan, the boy Mulvaney, is actually doesn't have breasts at all and isn't even trying to get them. So how a sports bra actually helped him out, I'm not exactly sure. But Martina Navratilova had the audacity to say this is stupid. And of course, the woke culture completely pounced on one of the greatest tennis players that's ever lived, who's actually done more good in this world than every woke piece of shit in this country will ever do combined. And now she is a Nazi because she had the audacity to say this is stupid.
Well, as usual, folks, we are amateur comedians, and everything we say and discuss on this show is all parody and meant to be
Of course.
taken as jokes. So if you decide you want to be litigious, I mean, we're just joking around. So anyway, alleged, whatever. Just kidding. Dylan Mulvaney, yeah, that's a dude. And it's worse than that. He's a grifter. He's an obvious grifter. And worse than that, most of his followers are kids.
Right. He's not
Out of
even
the
a
12
woman.
million followers.
I mean, obviously he's not a woman. But on top of that, if you ever really watched any of his videos, he's doing a parody of what he thinks a woman is. Almost like
100%.
almost like a comedic act. It frankly,
It is. It's a character. He's
it
doing
is.
a character.
He's absolutely doing a character like RuPaul.
Well,
Except
he
at
was.
least, but RuPaul's at least upfront about the fact that he's a drag queen and he's doing a character in his everyday life. He is, I can't remember his real name, but that's who he is in everyday life. This clown here, he's a joke, man.
Mulvaney was a thespian, was doing theater, worked in the theater, was actually traveling around doing this musical called The Book of Mormon. And then I quote, this when this was the dude, Dylan Mulvaney, all of a sudden the pandemic happened and he got this bright idea. And I quote, when the pandemic hit, I was doing the Broadway musical Book of Mormon. I found myself jobless and without a creative means to do what I loved. I downloaded TikTok, assuming it was a kid's app. Once I came out as a woman and I made, quote, day one of being a girl comedic video. So this character, comedic caricature, I blew up. I really don't know any other place like TikTok where a creator can grow as fast as I did. So basically, stuck the finger in the water of the zeitgeist and said, all right, I have a great idea for a character, launched it, it blew the freak up, and now he's reaping the rewards. He's already been to the White House, and like you said, Nike's got this dude wearing training bras, and now his face is on a Bud Light can. So as far as Bud Light's concerned, Bud Light, I mean, I'm not going to boycott anyway over any of this, but I wasn't going to drink Bud Light anyway because it's shit beer. But I do have to make one point about Kid Rock. So I feel like what Dylan Mulvaney is doing is a grift. What Bud Light is doing is an obvious grift. It's what all these corporations do is they, pander to the woke BS because that means they don't have to actually change anything about the way they operate, and that they can continue to be, whatever they are. And so they just pay a little lip service to the woke crew, and then they hope that they'll leave them alone. They won't throw bricks through their windows. So that's a grift, but also the Kid Rock thing. I'm sorry, when you make a response video to something like this and you're shooting cans, like you're just doing that for your own attention, Kid Rock. We all know that. Sure. But so he caught a bunch of flack, Rightfully so. You put yourself out there like that, but some of the flack I don't agree is even like well aimed though, because they're going on about how Coors Light. They're like, oh, because Kid Rock drinks Coors Light. They're like, oh, because here's a Coors Light ad where they have like a rainbow under the cap, and it's like Happy Bastille Day, and they're just talking about how as a company Coors has been very they've supported, always been very supportive of same-sex marriage and stuff like that. But here's my issue: they're conflating same-sex marriage with Dylan Mulvaney pretending to be something he's not, and everybody else is supposed to pretend along. Like, that's not the same thing as gays having the right to be married. Like, nobody cares about that. And to conflate those two, to me, that's the most homophobic thing you can do. And so you're trying to call me homophobic because I don't agree that I should have to call the obvious dude a woman because he's shoving it down my throat. And again, what I said last week, if you're a nice person, you don't have an agenda, and you don't demand respect from me, I'm probably just going to, out of the kindness of my heart, call you whatever you want and treat you how you want to be treated because you're treating me the way I want to be treated. But Dylan Mulvaney, Bud Light, all of these characters, they're not. They're shoving this shit down people's throat, and it has gone too far, and people are finally starting to push back.
I agree with that take. Obviously, people are starting to push back because they've had enough. It's become absurdly ridiculous. The video that Mulvaney put out, where he feigned that he didn't even know what sport March Madness is. He doesn't understand anything about sports. This is a 25, 26-year-old man who knows full damn well that March Madness is basketball. People don't know a damn thing about basketball, know that March Madness is about college basketball. So, because again, he's doing a parody of what he thinks a woman would do in that situation, not actually what he as a human being would do. And here is my rub about all this transgenderism. Is that almost every transgendered person that I have seen in interview or on TV or anywhere else, or even in secular life, right, just walking around and running into them, my observations are, regardless of which side, woman to man, man to woman, they're all doing a parody of what they think the other person is supposed to be, and none of them are authentic or acting like themselves. They're being what they think they're supposed to be, if that's the gender they actually were, as opposed to the person that they are. If you're truly transgender, if you truly believe that, then all you could possibly be is yourself, because that's who you're claiming you are. So if you're faking or doing a parody of a woman, if you're a guy who's transgendering to a woman, then clearly you're not really transgender. You're just playing a part.
If you just grow your hair long, put on a dress, and get fake tits, all you're saying is that what it means to be a woman are those few things, and that's just asinine.
Right.
And another thing I want to say is that I fundamentally want to touch on here is that I don't know if you've seen the what's her name, Riley? Gosh,
The
swimmer
that lost out on being an All-American because of Leah Thomas.
Yeah, Riley Gaines. And so she was doing a talk. Who, by the way, Riley Gaines is not a vitriolic person. She's not a political ideologue. She's very, sweethearted about what she's saying. But she is standing up for the fact that what she thinks is true, and I believe is true as well, is it's not fair that biological males are entering into these women's athletic spaces. So Riley Gaines was down in San Diego giving a talk somewhere in Southern California the past few days. And after the talk, she got mobbed by this angry mob of trans activists. And here's what I wanted to say.
State.
That's what it was, San Fran. They kept screaming. The chant they were shouting was, "Trans women are women. Trans women are women." And so my very first question is then, why are you specifying that they're trans women? Wouldn't it just be women are women? The very fact that you have to say trans women identifies the fact that that's not a woman. It's another thing. It's obviously another thing. Oh, and we can all see that, by the way. So you can repeat this stupid mantra as much as you want, but I'm not that easily hypnotized. And whatever, shut up.
Okay, and this is how these things have become not just ridiculous on their face, but hyperbolic and dangerous. is that she got sucker punched by a man dressed as a woman.
Yeah, and the police wouldn't even do
And they
anything.
won't arrest him, even though they have it
Yeah,
on film.
yeah,
How is that?
'cause
This woman got assaulted by a genetic man who, had he been in a better position and there wasn't anybody around her protecting her, if he would have got a clean shot at her, would have put her lights out and would have put her in the hospital.
and
Period.
that should be a hate crime, because if it were the other way around, it certainly would be.
You're damn right.
It would
And by
also
the
be.
way, another thing that nobody talks about when this Leah Thompson comes up, so I want to be clear on Leah Thompson. Leah Thompson was on Pennsylvania University. It's not Pennsylvania State University, Pennsylvania University. It's an Ivy League school. He spent 3 years on the varsity swimming team as a male. He was ranked 328th in the world, and he sucked. So he switched to the girls' team and then blew all their records right out of the water. And this Riley, she tied with him in an event, and they gave him the trophy simply based on the fact that he was transgendered and she wasn't. So he automatically got it. They pulled her aside and said, yeah, he wins, you come in second. And that was a dead heat. And why? Because we need to be woke, because we're an Ivy League school, and you're barely above community college at Arizona. So you don't really count. We're Penn. So we're going to be totally woke, and you're going to have to eat shit, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Well, it's getting more and more violent, and like I don't see it going the other way. It's funny that like we could fight a civil war over gender. It's like you would think that if we were going to have another civil war, it would have been race based. It's like, oh, race based civil wars are so 19th century. Now we do it over your fucking junk, you know? Like, how do you identify?
For the woke people, I want to be clear that Chad said the 19th century, and since you're woke, you're not real smart. That means the 1800s.
So yeah, like, but here's another interesting thing about that. This is historically what happens to all major, empires and massive, thriving, opulent societies, is that as they start to meet their decline, all this gender fluidity and androgyny and all this very sexuality sort of focused stuff. Yes, pedophilia gets on the rise. You see that, and you see, this dramatic shift from masculine to more effeminate males to softer. Like if you look at the artwork in ancient Rome, ancient Greece, and you watch as you get closer and closer to the decline, the sculptors are sculpting people accurately, and they're going from like these very chiseled men to these very like doughy guys who like have a little boy next to them, right? So so anyway, I feel like we're going down the road to societal collapse, and it isn't because of the gender stuff. The gender stuff is a marker of a society in decline.
Oh, I agree, and I think, and I don't know how far down we want to go down this road today, but transgenderism. So there was a very involved long-term study done by German and Swiss scientists through the universities Berlin and Stockholm, and they studied for almost 2 generations, as they started the study in the 1980s, children and transgenderism. And the conclusion that they came to was that well over 50% of all of these kids were autistic. And one of the conclusions they were coming to is that autistic kids, they can be very focused on singular things. So if they are told by the few people that they communicate with that you're not a boy anymore, now you're a girl, that they hang on to that and they dig in hard, like they would with anything else, because that's part of being autistic. And so this isn't an accident that all this is happening, and this is why, and we've discussed this before, this is why our medical community should be ashamed of themselves. Our politicians have no shame, so I'm not even going to bother with that one. But us as a society to pretend that these things are okay, it's not okay. And if you are listening to me and you think that this is okay, the mutilation and harming children psychologically is an okay thing, please never speak to me again, ever, under any circumstances, for any reason, because I don't want to be your friend, because you're a monster by my definition. And then I'll leave it there.
Yeah, I'll just say my last piece on it. We're Ed and I have been very close friends with plenty of gay people. Totally support gay marriage. Totally support even to be for an adult person to do whatever surgeries and altering to their bodies and their chemistry, whatever. It's your right as an adult, but it's not your right as an adult to do some sort of an life altering thing to a young person, to a person who can't even consent to having sex, and you're going to change their sex. No, 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 no. Because we know for a fact that a large subset of kids go through gender crises and gender questioning and things like that. We have the tomboys, we have the more effeminate males, and many of them go through this short period where they think they are in the wrong body and stuff like that. But if you leave them alone and you let them be kids, they actually just grow up to be an adult who's either gay or just on a different end of the spectrum of a straight person. By the way, I also believe there are legitimately trans people who were caught between what's the new word for hermaphrodite? Intersex. There's somewhere in the intersex thing where they have a more prominent one genitalia over the other, but their chemistry is off. I think that anomaly does exist, but the fact that there is a tenfold increase in that obvious anomaly, it's no longer an anomaly anymore, and that's because it's caught fire as this trend, and that's dangerous. That's what I've been saying. We're looking at the end of societal decline unless we're somehow able to push back and recorrect. And I don't know if I'm that white pilled. So with that, what do you want to talk about next, boss?
Well, I want to talk about the hard